Pierre-Nicolas Regal, so sorry about my French accent. Some of you already know me. We've met last year and 2 years ago. I am one of the members of the development team in FileWave. We have few team members here. The other ones are still in Europe, and they are working hard to implement new features and to add new stuff in FileWave for you. So we only have a few of us here, but feel free to grab us and ask any question you want. I have the role of FileWave core product owner, which is a bit weird for anyone outside FileWave. My role is to make sure that features are correctly implemented and to decide how we add new items in FileWave. Even if I'm talking about, if my role is to decide how things are in FileWave, I just want to take a few minutes to talk about how we decide in FileWave how we add new features and what would be the next version of FileWave. We have different inputs. The main driver for us is the product vision. We know what FileWave should be. Every time we want to add a new feature into FileWave, we know that this is how FileWave should look like. And we don't want to just copy whatever another vendor is doing or it is usually the way to do something. We want to make it available the same way as any other feature in FileWave. We want to make it as easy as possible. That's usually our main driver. Of course, we are an endpoint management solution or a system management solution or a mobile device management solution, depends on which train you'd catch earlier, as we said this morning. So we have to adapt FileWave to the new products that are available on the market. We want you to be able to use whatever you want. If there is a new version of Apple operating systems, we don't want you to be blocked to the previous version. The same if you are going to Chromebooks. The market changes. 10 years ago, nobody would use an iPad. They didn't exist. Chromebooks, 5 years ago, nobody would use them. But now, today, with FileWave, you can manage all these devices with your FileWave instance. So we take into account this input to decide what will be in FileWave as well. Now, it's not the best part of the presentation, bug reports. Yeah, we know we have some of them. Sorry about it. I'm not really proud of it. But we want the product to be as usable as possible, and we want you to be happy to use that product. So bug reports and fixing problems is an important input for us as well. Talking about you, this is where you are, customer feature requests. When you are asking us, yeah, I would need this in my everyday life, we take this into account, and we take the conference as we have this year in the US or last year in both US and Europe to get your feedback, your input about what you would need from FileWave to help you in your everyday working life. And we want the FileWave community to grow, to have more users, more customers, so FileWave is a product which is used by as many people as possible. So we need to take into account some people that says, yeah, I would love to go with FileWave, but I don't have this feature. So we have to take that into account. Our main challenge is that, yeah, I said customer feature requests, prospect feature requests, but education is not the same as enterprise. Same for prospect or which can be education and enterprise. And even then, an education organization in the US is completely different from a Swiss bank, or a Canadian retail is completely different from a school system in France. So we have to find what's the best things for all of you, and this is why 3 years ago when we had this first conference, we talked about what we could add in FileWave, and we gather all the feature requests you have, and we probably don't have implemented all of them. And I must admit that we haven't implemented all of them. But the main reason is that we have all these inputs, and it's a lot of different inputs. And we want to make sure that we have the most important ones done, which makes some others a little bit less important today, and they are not in the product yet. But that doesn't mean that your feedback is not valuable. That doesn't mean that your feedback is not important to us. So we really want to hear you to get your information, how you are using FileWave. I'm always saying that as a developer, I'm very rarely using FileWave, and I don't know the product as much as you all know. So your input for us is very important. Even if you have asked for something which is not in the product yet, it doesn't mean that it will never happen. We are taking that into account. Talking about features, if I just look back in the past, since last time we met was in March 2016, we released 7 different versions, starting from 11.0, which has been released shortly after last conference, and 12.3, which we released a few months ago. 2 major releases, 11.2 in October and 12.0 in April. I just want to go quickly through all of these versions, not to show what we have done, but just to give you the opportunity to read some of the features we may not have advertised as much as we wanted, and to give you the opportunity to, oh, this feature, I don't know about this feature. I will grab one of the FileWave guys, and I will ask, maybe there is something that I can use next time when I come back in my office, and that will help me or help my team. So just go quickly through these versions, major new features, and if you have any question, we are there for 2 or 3 days, and grab us. FileWave 11.0, released just after the conference, we introduced advanced scripting mechanisms, so where you can define exactly when a script is executed during your desktop deployment, post-flight script, when you uninstall, so you have very good control over your desktop deployment. We started to work on LDAP. We understand that it's more and more complicated to have small organizations, and your organizations are growing and growing, and integrating FileWave administrator system inside LDAP helps adding more and more users into FileWave. Inventory clients, which was our request from the previous conference, and Apple released iOS 9.3 just during our conference. That's kind of habit they have to release something when we have our conference. So it was, FileWave 11.0 was the first release to support the 9.3 new features. And, okay. 11.0 was as well the first version where we spent more time on the backend, under the hood system of FileWave. I don't know how many of you are old customers and have heard about support answering, no, sorry, this is not possible because FileWave has 2 databases. This is something we had back in the days, and we worked on different things internals to FileWave to help us, development team, to build new things in the future. And everything we've implemented since 11.1.0, it's starting from FileWave 11, was based on the changes we implemented in FileWave 11. So the main one was this one database change, and we started to work on booster improvements to make sure that you can add more and more devices to your installation without having problems with FileWave. And we started to fix some issues, more than 30 bug fixes improvements. A few months later, the main feature Apple introduced with iOS 9.3 was the support for Apple School Manager with Classroom and shared iPads, and FileWave 11.1 was the version supporting all this. So we've made it possible to easily add shared iPads to your organization. And we fixed a few issues as well. As you can see, we haven't taken so much holidays during summer 2016 because FileWave 11.2 just went out of the door in October with support for Apple 4 release, so everything which is iOS 10, tvOS 10, macOS Sierra, and everything which was impacting you directly, like system integrity protection, all the new profiles, new DEP options. As we do every year, Apple releases a new version. We are committed to provide you all these new features as soon as possible. So FileWave 11.2 was a 0-day support for iOS 10. And as we are not just an Apple system management, we have added some other new features like Discovery, which allows you to have information about devices which are not yet in FileWave. We've worked on the booster view to give you all information you require because we've seen feedback we got from previous version was, yeah, now you have everything in FileWave, but I don't see when something goes wrong. Now you have clear indication that something is going wrong. And here this setup has a lot of thread, so not that great. Imaging, also important, PCI Express support, and again, a few bug fixes and improvements. FileWave 12, first version of 2017, we have a new team member, Chromebooks. You guys are interested in having Chromebooks, and you guys are not interested in having two different systems to manage them. We don't have all possibilities to manage Chromebooks because Google and Apple and Microsoft have different views on how you should manage devices. Google is more, I want to manage everything on my own, while Apple lets us doing it for them. But we wanted to have all information in inventory and give you the ability to track all your Chromebook devices in FileWave in the same application you are using every day. And Apple is not sleeping as well, and April means the 10.3 release, everything which is education, so new profiles, new DEP options, new MDM commands. And again, we try to make them the FileWave way. For instance, Apple introduced MDM lost mode, which is a way to make sure that you logged your devices and display a specific message on iPads which are stolen. We had lost mode in FileWave. So instead of just adding, yeah, this device is lost mode, we integrated that into FileWave state. Imaging UEFI support, so going rid of the old BIOS support. And this one was a very huge in terms of quality and bug fixes, as we fixed more than 145 bugs in this version. 12.1, so this slide probably means not that much for all US customers. We joined Univention Corporate Server, UCS, which is a German software provider. They provide an appliance with ready-to-go software for organizations, schools, or enterprise. And we saw it was a good idea to have FileWave part of it because it grows FileWave community. But as we wanted to do something else than just UCS, we fixed a few bug fixes in this version as well. In July, we released Engage for Windows, Engage, our classroom management tool. That was part of the last year conference request. People would like to have Engage, but in their classes, they have BYOD with Mac, with iOS devices, and Windows. And if Windows was not covered, then it was not possible to use Classroom, Engage, in their classroom. So this is why we added Engage in Classroom. We made it easier to use LDAP configuration, so small internal detail, but that helped. And we continued fixing issues, more than 55 improvement and bug fixes. Last version released before the conference, iOS 11, tvOS 11, macOS 10.13. As usual, we support the new platform, we support new profiles, we support the new DEP options, the new MDM commands. So if you want to move to the latest version, and usually for iOS you don't have the choice, we help you to move to these new platforms. Imaging was also updated to support the new APFS and the new file system introduced by Apple for High Sierra. And we took the opportunity to adapt FileWave to the changes Apple introduced recently with the new changes in VPP. There will be a talk later today about VPP, so I encourage you to visit it. It's not just because I am in this talk as well, but if you want to have more details about it, we'll talk about it. And we fixed a handful of bugs and added some improvements there. As you've seen, as you've heard, I talk a lot about, yeah, we fixed bugs and improvements. If you remember my first slide when I'm saying the inputs we got and we take to decide what would be in FileWave, the feedback we got last conference was, yeah, FileWave is great, but sometimes you're adding features we don't want. We would prefer that the existing features are working as they should. And we recognize that in the past, we were sometimes too fast to release something to give you this feature in your hand so you could use it without taking the time of making it working as it should. And we went back in the past, we looked at what could be fixed, what would make your life easier, and we fixed more than 300 bugs or 300 improvements since last time we met. And to make sure that these bugs are not reappearing, we've put the focus on quality by adding more than 600 automated tests to make sure that FileWave is better than it was in the past. But it's not only fixing bugs. We had 7 releases, more than 20 important major features, and we support the new platforms introduced by Apple, introduced by Google, and by Microsoft in all of these versions. So stop talking about the past and just talk about future. So what will be in the future version of FileWave? First question would be, when will be the next version? So we won't have the, now you can just log in to filewave.com and download the next version. We're still working on it. It will be available end of the year, beginning of next year. If you see some of the QA guys around, just ask them to test as much as possible so you can get it before Christmas, but I can't promise anything. What do we have in 12.7? Oh, by the way, 12.7, don't ask where are 12.4, 12.5, 12.6, don't ask. 12.7 will be the next version. End-user whiteboxing, this is something we've heard that sometimes FileWave is not as known as we would expect, and that when you have BYOD and you have students enrolling to FileWave MDM, they have no idea what is FileWave MDM. They want to enroll to their school organization, to their enterprise. They don't know what is FileWave, and they have troubles with that. So we made it possible for you to customize what the end user will see. MDM profile, so what will show up when they enroll with an MDM device, enrollment page, the kiosk. We now have clear guides on how to customize them and how to make sure that this end-user visible parts of FileWave looks like your own corporate items. And good thing is that next time you upgrade FileWave, we won't wipe what you have done. It will stay, and you just have to take care about upgrading FileWave and not upgrading your customization. We started to work on LDAP. I must admit that the code we had for LDAP extraction was not touched for a long time. I think it has been changed before I joined FileWave, and you have changed since last time we touched that code. And from small organizations with small information in your Active Directory, you move to something very large, and FileWave had to be adapted to that. So we've made drastic speed improvements in LDAP extraction. And because security, as ThirdGate CEO discussed this morning, is more and more a thing, we introduced LDAP S support, so you know all FileWave components. Thanks, Gilbert. All FileWave components talking to LDAP are now able to talk with over SSL, over TLS, and you don't have to touch any configuration file. You can just do it from FileWave and preferences. We want to have more granular control over retry scripts. So these are the very small features we added, but we felt that they would be interesting for you. Manage Apple IDs. Again, if you don't know what it is and what is used for, just come to the VPP session later today. And more flexible options when you enroll devices, when you enroll Apple DEP devices, about how we rename them. The big feature for 12.7 is custom fields. It's something we had in the pipe for a long time, but as you know, that we have new team members in the company. They are pushing hard for this one, and they convinced us that this was the right time to do it, and that it's something that could bring a lot to you existing customers of FileWave. So what is a custom field? It's just an inventory field where you can put data, and you don't have to wait for FileWave developer to implement it in FileWave. So if you want to add, I don't know, asset tag, if you want to add anything into inventory, and you can just do it on your own. We support numeric, strings, dates, Boolean, the same as the built-in types, and we let you define how the field value will be populated. You can do it by your own as a FileWave administrator. You change the value directly, or you update a CSV. You can run a script on the client side. So for instance, if you want to, I don't know, report what is my GPU on my Mac. We don't have that in FileWave. Now you can just run a small script that will run on the client and report that the GPU is an Intel one, or it's an NVIDIA or AMD. This is possible without having FileWave to add this field in our system. Or client-side command line, this is a strange thing, but this is for you who are already using the custom fields we have already in FileWave, and we really don't want you to change anything. If that works today, and if you're happy with this, just upgrade to FileWave 12.7, and your old custom fields will work the same way. So this is why we call them the legacy custom fields. And if you have any information which is useful in your LDAP system and you want them in FileWave, you will be able to just grab LDAP attributes and attach them to your device. So how can you do that? We have an easy-to-use custom field editor, so you can define default values, restricted values, and you cannot delete a custom field if it's used somewhere. You can define how a field is assigned to which device, because you don't want to run that heavy script on all your 10,000 devices. You just want to run the script on these 100 devices which are important. We give you this flexibility. The CSV import assistant is smarter as well, because you will be able to generate the template based on your fields. And when you import the CSV, we will tell you, hey, this field, you said it's a date field, but you have strings there. I can't import that. Or you told me to add a field to this serial number. I don't know this serial number. It's not in FileWave. So we will tell you all this information before you import your CSV. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible for you. Now you will ask, what can I do with these custom fields? The same thing as any other inventory field. So you can use them in inventory queries, in inventory reports, in smart groups based on custom fields. So now you can really finally define how you do your deployment thanks to custom fields and inventory queries. You will see them in client information. So here I have my GPU custom fields showing there directly. And we've been told that, yeah, it would be nice if you could use these custom fields in Apple profiles or in script. And we said, that why just custom fields? Why not any custom field? And this is what we changed as well. So any built-in field, any custom field can now be used in Apple profiles or in script. So when you will deploy the file set, we will automatically look into inventory and replace these variables with this. So you don't have to provide tons of profiles. And we took the opportunity to just add time delta queries. So you can now find all your devices who haven't checked in for the last 5 minutes, or things like that, so you have better control over your FileWave deployment again. After 12.7, spring 2018, with a big question mark, we know that Apple will release a new education release in spring. We don't know when. We don't know exactly what will be there. There are some Apple SEs around, so if you can get some information, that would be nice. Usually we get them early in the year, so we will be working closely with Apple to have all this information and all these new features done as soon as possible in FileWave, and then this leads us to spring 2018. We started to work on security, so we started with LDAP S because you are interested in security and you have some security concern as well. So we have FileVault 2 support in the pipe. We want you to be able to configure how iOS devices can be locked without having the requirement to contact Apple, so you manage everything on your side. On the imaging side, secure boot start to be a thing, so you want to have your BIOS or your UEFI secured. We will implement that in the next version of FileWave. And we want also to open FileWave to the world. So we started with inventory REST API, but we are starting to build small side services on top of it. We will provide a ServiceNow plugin to transfer inventory information to ServiceNow. AutoPKG, PyGen are external services that can bring external information into FileWave. So we just don't want to be a closed service and nobody can look into what FileWave is able to do. We want to share the information we have and let you share this information with your other systems. So that will be for FileWave spring 2018. What will be next after spring 2018? I will let Mr. John Clayton talk about what will be after 2018. Thank you very much.